The signal reached Valorian space on a Tuesday, though humans would never know which Tuesday it was. Hyarch and Veltharak reviewed the electromagnetic emissions with mild interest. His species had ruled 847 star systems for 10,000 years. And new discoveries always brought a moment of excitement before the routine work of integration began. The planet called Earth sat in an unremarkable star system, the third world from a yellow dwarf sun. Veltharak as analysts presented their findings with practiced efficiency. The dominant species had split atoms and created primitive fission weapons. They broadcast entertainment signals into space without encryption. Their world remained divided into nearly 200 separate territorial groups that competed for resources. They fight each other constantly. Senior analyst Mordax reported wars, conflicts, territorial disputes. Their historical records show thousands of years of almost continuous warfare. Veltharak's eye stalks curved in what passed for a smile among his kind. Violent primitives, perfect candidates for benevolent guidance. Prepare the integration protocol. Standard terms. The Concordat had perfected the process over millennia. A species discovered their radio signals. Within weeks, an ambassador fleet arrived. The terms were always the same and always generous. Join the Concordat, provide 40% of industrial output and natural resources, accept Concordat governance and military protection. In return, receive technology, medicine, and membership in galactic civilization. Refusal meant subjugation. Resistance meant correction. Extinction remained rare because most species recognized the logic of surrender. 3 months later, the ambassador fleet entered Earth's solar system. 30 ships of gleaming metal and elegant design. They positioned themselves above Earth's largest population centers. The message broadcast in every human language simultaneously. People of Earth, we are the Valorian Concordat. We bring an offer of civilization and prosperity. You have 72 hours to accept integration protocol terms. Your leaders have been provided documentation. Choose wisely. In Geneva, Secretary General Maria Santos called an emergency session of every nation on Earth. In Beijing, President Zhou reviewed the terms with military advisors. In Washington, the President convened the National Security Council. In Moscow, in Delhi, in Brasilia, in Nairobi, leaders read the same impossible choice: surrender or die. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed. The vote was unanimous. Earth's response came after 60 hours. We refuse. Leave our system. Do not return. Hyarch and Veltharak watched the transmission with genuine surprise. In 4,000 conquest campaigns, only 3 species had initially refused. All 3 had changed their minds after the first demonstration of Concordat military power. Humans would learn quickly. Ambassador Fleet reports the humans are mobilizing their militaries. Mordax reported primitive chemical rockets, nuclear warheads, electromagnetic weapons. Nothing that can threaten our shields. Send the 7th Subjugation Fleet, Veltharak ordered. Admiral Kryonix enjoys these corrective operations. 300 ships should be sufficient. The humans will surrender within a week. Admiral Kryonix received his orders with satisfaction. The 7th Fleet was the pride of the Concordat Navy. 300 warships, each capable of sterilizing a planet. He had conducted 47 subjugation campaigns without a single ship lost. The humans would be easy. They always were on Earth. Dr. Sarah Chun stood in the newly constructed Joint Defense Command Center buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens showed orbital positions of the alien fleet. Military commanders from every nation filled the room. The air tasted of concrete dust and desperation. 30 days until the main fleet arrives. General Marcus Torres announced, "We have 30 days to prepare for a war we cannot win. then we make them regret coming here, Sarah said quietly. Every eye turned to her. We cannot match their technology. We cannot match their numbers. But we can make victory cost them everything. Marcus nodded slowly. Total mobilization. Every nation. Every resource, every weapon. The next 30 days transformed Earth. Orbital platforms disguised as communication satellites moved into position. Nuclear arsenals that had threatened each other for decades now pointed toward the sky. Asteroid. Mining operations retooled their equipment for military purposes. Civilian factories converted to weapons production. Humanity prepared for extinction. Scientists worked around the clock, reverse engineering what little they understood from the Ambassador fleet scans. Engineers designed weapons that might, possibly, perhaps penetrate alien shields. Military planners developed tactics based on one simple principle. If we're gonna die, we take as many of them with us as possible. Sarah found Marcus in his office on day 27. He hadn't slept. In 70 hours, the people need to know what's coming. She said, they know. Everyone knows. The aliens made sure of that when they broadcast their ultimatum globally. Do you think we have any chance? Marcus looked at her with eyes that had seen too many wars. Of winning? No. Of surviving? No. Of making them remember us? Yes, on day 30. The 7th Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Krienix surveyed the primitive world ahead. Sensors showed the humans had indeed mobilized. Orbital platforms, surface installations, fleets of chemical rockets waiting in atmosphere. Pathetic. His tactical officer observed. Begin standard approach, Krienix commanded. Broadcast surrender terms one final time. If they refuse, destroy their orbital infrastructure. They will lose heart quickly. The fleet moved toward Earth in perfect formation. 300 ships against one world. The outcome was predetermined. Sarah watched the alien fleet approach on screens. Her hands trembled slightly. Beside her, Marcus stood perfectly still. All stations report ready, a communications officer announced. Then we show them what humanity means, Marcus said. He opened the command channel to every defense installation on Earth and in orbit. For everyone we've ever loved, for everyone who ever lived. For Earth, thousands of voices answered as one. For Earth, the 7th Fleet reached firing range. Admiral Krienix gave the order. Energy weapons blazed across the void. Earth's orbital platforms exploded in brilliant flowers of light. 17 installations vaporized in the first salvo, as expected. Krienix said, prepare for planetary bombardment. Target their military centers. Then every satellite in Earth's orbit activated. Thousands of objects that had been dismissed as civilian infrastructure suddenly revealed weapons. Kinetic projectiles, launched from magnetic rails. Nuclear-tipped missiles ignited their engines. Experimental laser batteries fired beams of coherent light. The entire planet's arsenal unleashed simultaneously. Admiral Krienix watched in shock as his shields flickered. The Concordat had designed their defensive systems to deflect energy weapons. But these primitives were throwing rocks, metal, explosives, kinetic bombardment in volumes no species had attempted in 3,000 years. Shields failing on decks 7 through 12. His tactical officer shouted a nuclear warhead penetrated the weakened shields. The explosion tore through Krienix's flagship. 30 more ships reported critical damage. 73 vessels went dark. Their reactors breached, their crews dead. Retreat, Krienix ordered. Fall back to lunar orbit. The 7th Fleet withdrew in chaos. Behind them, Earth's weapons continued firing until their ammunition exhausted in the Joint Defense Command. Silence held for 10 seconds. Then someone started cheering. The sound spread like wildfire. Casualty report, Marcus demanded. lost all orbital platforms, 30% of our missiles and kinetic weapons, but the alien fleet. General, we destroyed 73 of their ships. Sarah looked at Marcus. Tears ran down her face. We made them bleed. This is just the beginning, Marcus said. But for the first time in months, he allowed himself to smile. They know now. Humanity doesn't surrender. Far above, Admiral Krienix sent his report to High Archon Velthuric. The message was simple and terrifying. The humans fight like they have nothing to lose. Request reinforcements. Velthuric read the report 3 times. In 10,000 years, no primitive species had ever damaged a Concordat fleet. He dispatched the 3rd, 9th, and 12th fleets immediately. The war had begun. 6 months passed and Earth bled. 3 more Concordat fleets arrived in succession. Each brought more ships, heavier weapons, and stricter orders. High Archon Velthuric had grown tired of human defiance. The corrective operation was becoming expensive. Admiral Krienix commanded the combined forces now. Over 800 warships blockaded Earth. His strategy was simple and brutal. Destroy human infrastructure from orbit until they begged for mercy. No ground invasion, no negotiation. Just systematic annihilation of their capacity to resist the bombardment began on day 43. Orbital strikes targeted military installations first, then industrial centers, then population centers. Sydney burned. Mumbai was glassed. Mexico City vanished under a crater 3 kilometers wide. 4 billion humans died in the first 3 months. Dr. Sarah Chun survived because the Joint Defense Command sat deep underground. But she watched the casualty reports climb. Watched cities she had visited turn into radioactive wastelands. Watched humanity die in real time. We need to surrender, she told General Marcus Torres. We've lost. Continuing this is genocide. They're committing genocide whether we surrender or not, Marcus replied. His voice was hollow. Krienix broadcasts it every day. We will be examples. We will be corrected. Every human will serve the Concordat or die. There is no mercy coming. Sarah knew he was right. The Concordat's terms had changed. Integration was no longer offered. Earth would be conquered, occupied, and its survivors enslaved. The price of resistance, but humanity continued fighting. What was left of humanity anyway? 3 billion survivors lived in underground cities now. Massive bunker complexes built in mine shafts, subway tunnels, and purpose-built shelters. Entire civilizations buried beneath dead earth. The surface belonged to the Concordat. But below, humans worked. They studied captured technology from the battle 6 months ago. Wreckage from 73 destroyed ships had fallen to Earth. Concordat vessels built with materials and systems humans had never imagined. Teams of scientists and engineers dissected the wreckage. They found the faster-than-light drives. They found power systems that bent physics. They found weapons that made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. We can't build most of this, Dr. Yuki Tanaka reported. She led the reverse engineering effort. Their manufacturing requires precision we don't have, materials we can't synthesize. But the FTL drive, that we might manage, how long? Marcus asked. 4 months. Maybe 5. We'd need to cannibalize every intact component we found. Build a drive system that's basically held together with hope and desperation. Do it, Marcus ordered. And keep it secret. If the Concordat learns we're attempting FTL, they'll target this facility specifically. The project received a name, Prometheus, because they were stealing fire from the god. Sarah joined the engineering team. Her background in xenolinguistics proved useful in decoding Concordat technical documentation. Working 18-hour days in underground labs lit by emergency lighting. The whole facility ran on geothermal power now. Earth's surface was too dangerous for solar collectors. What's the plan if we succeed? Yuki asked during one exhausted meal break. We build an FTL drive. Then what? We can't fight 800 warships. We don't fight them here, Sarah said quietly. An idea had been forming in her mind. A terrible, beautiful idea. We take the fight to them. It took Marcus 3 seconds to understand. His expression shifted from confusion to horror to grim determination. You want to attack Concordat territory. I want to make them hurt. Make them bleed. Make them understand that Earth will never stop. Not ever. Not until they withdraw or we're all dead. That's terrorism. That's war, Sarah corrected. They came to our home. They murdered 4 billion people. Now we go to their homes. We make them feel what we felt. Marcus was quiet for a long time. We'd need ships, plural. 1 vessel isn't enough. We have enough Concordat wreckage for maybe 50 FTL cores, Yuki said. If we strip every damaged ship, use Earth technology for the rest. Build something that flies, but doesn't need to be pretty. 50 ships against the Concordat, Marcus mused. Still suicide. Everything we do is suicide, Sarah said. But this way, we make them remember us. The project expanded. Underground shipyards activated. Humanity's remaining aerospace corporations contributed expertise. Russian engineers worked beside American designers. Chinese metallurgists collaborated with European physicists. Indian software specialists programmed navigation systems with Israeli computer scientists. Nationality didn't matter anymore. Only species mattered. Humans building weapons to strike back at the monsters who killed their world. The ships were ugly, cobbled together from Earth alloys and alien technology. Each vessel looked different because each used whatever materials were available. Number 2 were identical, but they all had 3 things in common. FTL capability, weapon storage, and no shields. Shields require too much power, Yuki explained. We're using every scrap of energy for engines and weapons. These ships can't defend themselves. They won't need to, Marcus said, because they're not coming back. That was Operation Prometheus's true nature. A one-way mission. 50 ships, 50 crews, 50 targets in Concordat space. Kamikaze attacks on a galactic scale. Finding volunteers was instant. Every survivor wanted revenge. Marcus had to turn away thousands. He selected crews based on skills, not enthusiasm. Each ship needed engineers, navigators, weapons specialists. People who could fly an experimental vessel through unmapped space and hit their targets. Sarah volunteered immediately. Marcus refused. You're too valuable. We need your expertise here. I'm going, Sarah insisted. I helped design this. I'm not sending people on a mission. I won't fly myself. They argued for hours. Sarah won by simple logic. She understood Concordat technology better than anyone. If something broke during the flight, she could fix it. Marcus couldn't argue with that. The ships received their names from Earth's mythology. Prometheus, Icarus, Valkyrie, Phoenix. 50 names for 50 vessels carrying humanity's vengeance. Loading the weapons took weeks. Each ship carried antimatter bombs stolen from Concordat arsenals. Nanite weapons that consumed organic matter. Viral agents designed to target Concordat biology. Experimental devices that human scientists barely understood but knew would kill. This is beyond war crimes, Yuki said, staring at the weapons manifest. This is genocide. They started it, Marcus replied. His voice was ice. They chose to make us monsters. Now they get to meet the monsters they created. The target list came from Concordat communications the fleet had intercepted. 50 colony worlds. Not military installations, but civilian populations. Farms, cities, families. Sarah felt sick reading the list. These are innocents. So were the 4 billion they murdered, Marcus said. I'm not proud of this, but I'm not backing down either. The Concordat needs to learn that attacking Earth has consequences. Launch day arrived. 50 ships sat in underground hangars carved from mountain rock. Huge doors would open to the surface for just seconds, long enough for the vessels to launch before orbital strikes targeted the openings. Sarah stood in Prometheus's cramped bridge with her crew. Chunwa Zhao on navigation. Mohammed Al-Rashid on weapons. Jessica Okonkwo on engineering. 4 people, 1 ship, 1 mission. All vessels report ready. The communication channel crackled. Marcus's voice came through. This is it. You're carrying humanity's survival. Not our survival as a species. We're probably dead either way. But our survival as an idea. The idea that some things are worth dying for. Make them remember. Make them regret. Make them pay. For Earth. 50 captains responded in unison. The hangar doors opened. Launch rails, electromagnetic coils firing. Prometheus shot into the sky at 12 G-forces. Around the planet, 49 other ships launched simultaneously. Concordat orbital sensors detected the launches instantly. Admiral Krenix ordered immediate interception. Energy weapons targeted the ascending vessels. 3 ships died before leaving atmosphere. 2 more exploded at orbital altitude. 45 ships activated their FTL drives. Space stood twisted. Reality folded. They vanished. Krenix stared at his sensors in disbelief. They have FTL. How do they have FTL? His tactical officer checked the trajectories. Admiral, they're heading toward Concordat space. Toward our colonies. Track them. Send their vectors to High Arkham Veltharic. Tell him. Krenix paused. What do you tell your leader when the primitives you were supposed to crush are now attacking your civilization? Tell him the humans are coming. Aboard Prometheus. Sarah watched the starfield shift. FTL travel was nothing like movies suggested. Space didn't streak past. Everything just seemed slightly wrong. Like reality had a fever. Transit successful. Chun reported. 18 days to target at current speed. Sarah checked their target designation. Valorian, Prime 7. Agricultural colony. Population 42 billion. Responsible for food production across 17 sectors, 42 billion lives. She was going to end 42 billion lives. Second thoughts? Mohammed asked quietly. So many I can't count them, Sarah admitted. But I'm not stopping. Good, he said. Because neither am I. The fleet scattered. Each ship heading to a different target. Deliberate separation to maximize devastation. The Concordat couldn't intercept them all. High Arkham Veltharic received the reports. 45 human vessels. 45 different vectors. 45 Concordat worlds in their paths. Intercept them, he ordered. The Concordat withdrawal from Earth orbit took 3 days. Admiral Krenix received orders directly from High Archon Veltharic. Pull back all forces immediately. Cease all offensive operations. Establish communication with human leadership for immediate negotiation. Krenix couldn't believe the orders. His forces controlled Earth's orbit. The planet was broken. Continued bombardment would end human resistance within months. And now retreat? Then he read the casualty reports from the 45 colony strikes. 340 billion dead. Entire worlds burning. Civilizations that had existed for thousands of years simply gone, he understood. The humans had won. Not through superior force, but through absolute willingness to embrace mutual destruction. They had proved that attacking Earth meant the Concordat would lose more than they gained. The fleet departed. 800 warships turning away from the shattered blue world, leaving behind a graveyard of 4 billion humans and the memory of their own failure. Deep in the Rocky Mountain Command Center, General Marcus Torres watched the alien vessels leave. His staff cheered. He couldn't. The price had been too high for celebration. "Get me casualty estimates," he ordered. The numbers came back quickly. Earth's population before first contact, 7 billion. Current population, 2,800,000,000. Over 60% losses. Entire nations simply gone. Languages spoken by no one left alive. Cultures erased. And theirs? Marcus asked quietly. "Concordat casualties from our strike. 340 billion confirmed dead. Estimates suggest another 20 billion will die from secondary effects. Ecosystem collapse, infrastructure failure, contamination." Marcus closed his eyes. "We killed more of them than there were of us before the war started. We won, sir. Did we?" Marcus looked at his second-in-command. "We murdered 340 billion civilians. We committed genocide on a scale that makes every human war in history look like a bar fight. We won, but what did we become to win?" No one had an answer. The Concordat's communication came an hour later. "BROADCAST on every frequency. This is High Arkham Veltharic of the Valorian Concordat. We formally request negotiations with Earth's government. We acknowledge our error. We seek peaceful resolution. We await your response." Marcus read the message 3 times. "They're surrendering. They're actually surrendering. Should we trust it?" His communications officer asked. "Doesn't matter. We're in no position to refuse. Earth is dying. Our population is scattered. We need time to rebuild, even if we don't trust them." He composed the response himself. "This is General Marcus Torres, speaking for Earth's Joint Defense Command. We accept your request for negotiations. Terms are simple. Total Concordat withdrawal from Sol System. Formal recognition of Earth's sovereignty. Reparations for damages. Non-aggression treaty with verification measures. You have 48 hours to respond." Valtharic's reply came in 20 minutes. "All terms accepted. We will send a diplomatic vessel. It will be unarmed and alone. We await your designation of neutral meeting location." The negotiations took place on Luna, in a hastily constructed facility on the moon's surface. Neutral ground where both sides could meet without orbital superiority mattering. Marcus led Earth's delegation. He brought engineers, scientists, diplomats, and enough military personnel to make clear that humanity remained dangerous despite their losses. Concordat arrived in a single ship. Veltharic himself came, along with advisors and military representatives. When the High Archon entered the conference room, Marcus saw an alien who looked ancient and tired. They were humanoid in basic structure. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. But their skin was crystalline blue. Their eyes were compound and faceted. Their fingers were too long and had too many joints. Veltharic studied Marcus with equal intensity. Seeing the human in military uniform, gray hair, scarred hands, eyes that had seen too much death. "General Torres," Veltharic said, his translator converting the words to human language. "You have my attention. You have our terms," Marcus replied. "Do you accept them?" "Yes. All Concordat military forces will withdraw immediately. Earth's sovereignty is recognized. We will provide reparations in technology and resources. The non-aggression treaty will be drafted with any verification measures you require." Marcus hadn't expected complete capitulation. Why? What? Why surrender? You have thousands of ships. You control most of the galaxy. Earth is broken. You could grind us into extinction with patience and time. Veltharic was quiet for a moment. "Because you taught me something, General. Something the Concordat forgot over 10,000 years of easy conquests. Victory is not about who has the most ships or the biggest weapons. Victory is about who is willing to pay the highest price. He gestured to the displays showing casualty reports. You paid with 4 billion of your people. You made us pay with 340 billion of ours. And you made it clear you would do it again. You would keep killing our civilians until either we withdrew or both our species were extinct. So you're afraid of us? Yes, Veltharic admitted, terrified. You fight like you're already dead. Like nothing matters except making your enemy hurt. That makes you the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Marcus smiled without humor. Good. Fear will keep you honest. The treaty was signed that day. The Concordat agreed to withdraw completely, provide technological assistance to help Earth rebuild, pay reparations in materials and resources. Most importantly, they agreed that Earth would remain independent forever. No integration, no oversight, no interference. Other species watched the negotiations with intense interest. The Concordat had seemed invincible. They had conquered hundreds of civilizations, integrated thousands of worlds, faced no successful resistance in millennia now. A primitive species had forced them to surrender through sheer savagery within weeks. Communication channels lit up across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered decades or centuries ago began questioning Concordat authority. Rebellions started on 40 worlds. Independence movements formed on 100 more. The empire that had lasted 10,000 years began to crack. High Archon Veltharic watched his empire fracture from his throne world. Reports came daily of new rebellions, new resistance movements, new species claiming independence based on humanity's example. The humans broke us, Mordak said. Not through defeating our military, but by proving that submission has an alternative. They proved that fighting back, no matter how hopeless, can succeed if you're willing to pay any price, Veltharic corrected. And now everyone knows. Should we suppress the rebellions? Veltharic considered the question. With what? Our military is scattered. Our economy is reeling from 340 billion deaths. Half our colonies are demanding independence. If we fight, we might win, but we'll become what the humans are, a dying species that won by becoming monsters. So we let the empire dissolve? We adapt? We survive. We learn. On Earth, Marcus oversaw reconstruction efforts. The Concordat was providing technology as promised. Medical facilities that could heal radiation sickness. Agricultural systems that could restore poisoned soil. Manufacturing capacity to rebuild cities, but the scars remained. Entire regions stayed empty. Ghost cities where millions had died. Memorials erected on every continent, remembering the 4 billion lost. Marcus stood at one memorial in what had been Sydney. The city was being rebuilt, but the monument to its dead would remain forever. 4 billion names carved in stone. A list so long it stretched for kilometers. Do you think we did the right thing? A voice asked. Marcus turned to see a young survivor, maybe 20 years old, wearing reconstruction crew coveralls. I think we did the only thing we could, Marcus replied. But we killed so many of them. They killed 4 billion of us first. They came to conquer us, to enslave us. We showed them what that decision costs. My parents are on this wall, the young man said, pointing to names in the endless list. My sister, my grandparents, my friends. Everyone I knew before the war. Sometimes I wonder if surviving was worth it. Marcus put a hand on the young man's shoulder. It was worth it. Because you're alive. Because humanity survived. Because we proved that some things are worth dying for and worth killing for. Freedom? Freedom, Marcus agreed. The most expensive thing in the universe. 5 years passed. Earth rebuilt slowly. The population remained below 3 billion, but stability returned. Farms produced food again. Cities lit up at night again. Children were born who would never know the war except through history lessons. Marcus retired from military service. spent his time writing memoirs, consulting on defense policy, and wrestling with guilt over the 340 billion he had ordered killed. Then the message arrived. A request from Veltharek to visit Earth. To speak with Marcus personally. No political purpose. Just a conversation between two leaders who had survived the worst war either had known. Marcus agreed. They met in the Memorial Gardens of New Geneva, surrounded by plants genetically modified to grow in Earth's recovering soil. Veltharek looked older. His crystalline skin had cracks in it, signs of age in his species. Thank you for meeting me, General. I'm not a general anymore. Just Marcus. And I am not High Archon anymore. Just Veltharek. I was removed from power 3 years ago. The Concordat Council decided I had failed too greatly. You surrendered. That's not failure. The wave started small. A single colony world named Tharnix in the outer reaches of Concordat space. They declared independence 6 months after Earth's war ended. Cited humanity's example. Claimed the right to self-determination. Concordat sent a fleet to restore order. 300 ships arrived to find Tharnix had built weapons. Primitive but effective. Copied from human designs. Kinetic bombardment platforms, nuclear arsenals. Suicide vessels loaded with antimatter. The fleet withdrew without firing a shot. The commander reported that Tharnix fought like humans. That subduing them would cost more ships than the colony was worth. Veltharek, still High Archon at the time, made the decision to let them go. One colony wasn't worth another war, but other species watched. If Tharnix could declare independence successfully, why couldn't they? Within a year, 40 colonies claimed independence. Within 2 years, 100. Within 5 years, the Concordat had fractured into dozens of independent nations. The 10,000-year empire dissolved not through military conquest, but through the simple realization that submission was optional. Earth watched this transformation with mixed feelings. They had sparked a galactic revolution, freed hundreds of billions from Concordat rule. But they had also destabilized the largest empire in known space. Are we responsible for this? Marcus asked during a joint defense command meeting. He was still serving as advisor even in retirement. Responsible? Yes, to blame? No, answered Ambassador Chen Rei, who had taken over diplomatic operations after the war. The Concordat built their empire on forced submission. We proved submission wasn't necessary. The empire couldn't survive that truth, but the chaos. Some of these new independent species are fighting each other. There are resource wars, territorial disputes, old grudges surfacing. Freedom is messy, Chen Rei said. Slavery is neat and orderly. But we didn't fight for neat and orderly. We fought for the right to choose our own future, even if that future is chaotic. Marcus couldn't argue with that logic. But he worried about the galaxy. About what came next. Earth's role changed rapidly. They became symbols. The species that said no. Ambassadors from newly independent worlds visited constantly, seeking advice, requesting technology, asking how to defend their freedom. Humanity found itself in an unexpected position. Galactic leaders, not through conquest, but through example. A delegation from Tharnix arrived on Earth, led by Commander Velkris, the military officer who had successfully defended their independence. We owe you everything, Velkris told Marcus during a state dinner in New Geneva. You showed us that fighting back was possible. We showed you that fighting back is expensive, Marcus corrected. We lost over 60% of our population. You should negotiate if you can. Fight only when there's no alternative. The Concordat gave us the same choice they gave you, submit or die. Then you made the only choice you could, Marcus said. But remember the price. Never start a war unless you're willing to see it through to the end. Velkris studied the human. Your species fascinates mine. You committed the greatest atrocity in history. killed 340 billion civilians. Yet you speak of restraint and negotiation. Because we know what violence costs, Marcus said quietly. We carry 340 billion deaths on our conscience. We see their faces in our nightmares. We built memorials to our own victims. We became monsters to win, and now we have to live with that. Do you regret it? Marcus considered the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the Concordat forced us into that choice. But I don't regret surviving. I don't regret fighting back. I regret the cost, but not the decision. The conversation reflected a larger truth. Humanity had won their freedom but lost their innocence. They had proved they could be as brutal as any species in the galaxy. Maybe more brutal because they were willing to embrace mutual destruction. Meanwhile, the Concordat continued shrinking. More colonies declared independence every month. The central government couldn't maintain control without constant military intervention, and they lacked the resources for that after losing so much in the Earth. War High Archon Veltheric faced mounting pressure. The Council demanded he restore order. Military commanders wanted permission to crush rebellions. Civilian leaders worried about economic collapse. We need Earth's help, Mordax told him during a private meeting. Help? You want me to ask the species that killed 340 billion of our citizens for help? Who else understands what we're facing? Who else has experience with this level of chaos? The humans went through their own period of global conflict. They unified their world eventually. They know how to build peace from chaos. Veltheric hated the idea. His pride screamed against it. But his pride had already cost 340 billion lives. Maybe it was time to set pride aside. He sent the message himself. General Torres, this is High Archon Veltheric. I request your counsel. My empire is collapsing. Species are fighting for independence and fighting each other. Chaos spreads. You've dealt with similar challenges during Earth's unification. I ask not as an enemy, but as someone seeking wisdom. Please help me understand how to build peace. Marcus received the message with surprise. Disgusted with Earth's leadership. The consensus was clear. Help him. Why? Marcus asked. He tried to conquer us. He ordered the deaths of billions. Because the alternative is Galactic War, Chun-Rei explained. If the Concordat collapses completely, you'll have 1,000 species fighting over the scraps. Billions more will die. We have a chance to guide this transition. To help build something better, Marcus traveled to the Concordat throne world. Valoria Prime, a planet of crystal spires and ancient architecture. Beautiful and alien Veltheric met him personally. They sat in a garden overlooking the capital city. The same two old soldiers, different setting. Thank you for coming, Veltheric said. Thank you for asking, Marcus replied. It takes courage to request help from an enemy. You're not my enemy anymore. You're my teacher. You taught me that force doesn't create lasting loyalty. Fear doesn't build empires that survive. Those lessons cost me everything. So what do you want from me? How do I let go? Veltheric asked. The Concordat has ruled for 10,000 years. We built galactic civilization. We brought order to chaos. Now that order is collapsing, and I don't know how to guide the transition without everything falling into war. Marcus thought about Earth's history. Centuries of conflict before unification. Nations fighting, cultures clashing, ideologies competing. You don't let go all at once, he said. You create a framework. A federation instead of an empire. Give species autonomy, but provide collective security. Trade agreements instead of tribute. Mutual defense instead of conquest. Like the United Nations on Earth? Similar, but stronger. With actual enforcement mechanisms. Earth's UN was weak for centuries because member nations kept their sovereignty. You need something that balances independence with cooperation. The species won't trust us to lead this federation. Then don't lead it, Marcus said. Step back. Let the newly independent species form the government. The Concordat can be a member, but not the ruler. Veltharic looked shocked. Abandon leadership entirely? Leadership isn't about control. It's about service. If you want to rebuild trust, serve rather than rule. They talked for hours, discussing structures, safeguards, mechanisms for dispute resolution. Marcus shared Earth's painful lessons about democracy, representation, and peaceful transition of power. This will take generations, Veltharic said. Yes, but the alternative is more war, more death, more species becoming what we became, Veltharic agreed. Over the next 3 years, the Concordat transitioned from empire to federation. They called it the Galactic Commonwealth, open to any species that wanted membership. Based on mutual cooperation rather than forced submission, the transition was messy. Some species refused to join. Some tried to conquer their neighbors. Some fell into civil war. But slowly, with Earth's guidance and the Concordat's resources, order emerged from chaos, not the old order of empire. A new order based on choice. Marcus watched this transformation from Earth, still advising but letting others lead. Humanity had sparked the revolution, but they didn't want to control it. We changed the galaxy, Chun Ray said during one of their meetings. We broke it first, Marcus corrected. We killed 340 billion people. We became monsters. And now we're helping build something better. Doesn't that redeem us? No, Marcus said firmly. Nothing redeems genocide. We did terrible things. Necessary things perhaps, but terrible. We can't erase that by doing good things later. So we carry the guilt forever? Yes, that's the price of victory. We won our freedom and we paid with our souls. Chun Ray was quiet. Then, was it worth it? Marcus looked at Earth through the window. The blue planet had green returning to its continents. Cities rebuilding. Life continuing. Children being born who would live free. Ask me again in 100 years. The Galactic Commonwealth held its first open assembly 5 years after Earth's war. Representatives from 300 species gathered on a neutral station, discussing trade, security, cooperation. Earth sent Ambassador Chun Ray. She addressed the assembly with a simple message. 5 years ago, my species nearly died. We fought the Concordat and won. But victory cost us 4 billion lives and cost the galaxy 3. 20 years after the war ended, Earth had become something unexpected. Not a conquering power, but a moral compass. Humanity's reputation for savage violence was balanced by their obvious guilt over that violence. They were the species that remembered their sins. The galaxy watched as Earth built monuments to their own victims. 340 billion names carved into crystal obelisks that orbited Earth. You could see them from the surface at night. Glowing points of light, each one representing a life humanity had taken. They mourned their enemies. Species across the Commonwealth observed. What kind of warriors mourn their kills? The humankind became the answer. The explanation for humanity's strange duality, capable of total war yet haunted by it afterward. Willing to kill billions yet remembering each death. Young people on Earth grew up differently than their parents had. They learned about the war in school, saw the casualty numbers, visited the memorial orbitals. They knew what their species was capable of, and it terrified them. Sarah Chun's daughter, born 3 years after her mother died on the Prometheus, visited the orbital memorial on her 18th birthday. She found her mother's name among the 50 crew members who had sacrificed themselves. Did you know what you were doing? She whispered to the crystal. Did you know you were becoming history's greatest mass murderer? A tour guide, an old veteran, overheard. Your mother knew exactly what she was doing. I served with her before the war. She was brilliant, compassionate, ethical, and she chose to kill 42 billion people because the alternative was slavery for humanity. How do you live with that? You don't, the veteran said. You survive with it. You carry it. You make sure the sacrifice meant something. The girl looked at the stars beyond the memorial. We're free because of her, and 340 billion are dead because of her. Both are true. That's the burden humanity carries on the Concordat throne world, now just called Valoria Prime. Veltharic had lived to see his empire become something better. The Galactic Commonwealth had 847 member species. They debated, argued, occasionally threatened each other. But they didn't conquer. He was 835 years old now. Ancient, even for his long-lived species. He spent his final years writing his own memoirs. A counterpoint to Marcus Torres's famous work. I met humanity expecting primitives, he wrote. Beings that would recognize the futility of resistance and submit peacefully. I was wrong in every possible way. Humanity taught me that civilization is not measured by technology or longevity or the size of your empire. It is measured by what you're willing to sacrifice for your values. The Concordat ruled 10,000 years, but we had forgotten why we ruled. We conquered because we could. We integrated species because it was efficient. We had lost the connection between power and purpose. Humanity reminded us. They showed us that some species would rather die than submit. That freedom is worth any price. That dignity matters more than survival. They also showed us what happens when you force someone to choose between slavery and death. They find a third option, making you regret offering those choices. I ordered the conquest of Earth. I sent fleets to subjugate them. I authorized the bombardment that killed 4 billion humans. They responded by killing 340 billion of my people. Was I responsible for those deaths? Yes, every single one. I started the war. I gave humanity the choice that led to genocide. Do I forgive them? No. How can I forgive the deaths of 340 billion? Do I understand them? Yes, completely. They did what they had to do. That's the paradox of humanity. They are simultaneously the most moral and most ruthless species in the galaxy. They feel guilt for their actions, but they act anyway when necessary. Other species are either moral or ruthless. Humans are both. They will kill you while crying. They will commit genocide while building memorials to their victims. This makes them terrifying. Because you can never predict if you're dealing with the moral humans or the ruthless ones. And by the time you figure it out, it's too late. Veltharic died 3 months after completing his memoirs. His final words were reportedly, I met monsters, and they were us. The Commonwealth held a memorial service. Humanity sent representatives. Marcus Torres attended. Now 73 years old, still carrying the weight of his decisions, he stood before Veltharic's crystal burial marker. You were my enemy, Marcus said quietly. You tried to conquer Earth. You ordered billions killed. And I destroyed your empire. But you learned. You changed. You built something better from the ruins. I hope that matters. I hope the Commonwealth justifies the price we paid. Because if it doesn't, if we killed 340 billion people just to replace one empire with another, then we're not liberators. We're just different monsters. Marcus traveled back to Earth after the service. Spent the flight looking at casualty reports he had memorized 20 years ago. 340 billion. The number haunted him. The memorial orbital had grown. New sections added over the years. Now it included the 4 billion Earth casualties too. Humans and Concordat citizens remembered together. Victims of the same war. We built a memorial to everyone, Ambassador Chen Ri explained during a Commonwealth summit. Because in the end, we're all casualties. Everyone who died. Everyone who survived. We're all scarred by what happened. A young species, newly admitted to the Commonwealth, asked the question everyone wondered. Why do humans mourn their enemies? Why build memorials to those you killed? Because they were people, Chunrei answered. They had families, dreams, futures. We took all that away. We had reasons. Good reasons even. But that doesn't change what we did. So you accept blame? We accept responsibility, Chunrei corrected. Blame suggests we had another choice. We didn't. The Concordat forced us into a war of extinction. We chose to survive. But survival required becoming what we became. And you'll do it again? The room went quiet. Every species waited for the answer. Humanity's willingness to repeat their atrocity was the question that determined galactic security, Chun. Ray looked at the assembled representatives. If you give us the same choice, if you threaten humanity with extinction, if you force us to choose between slavery and death, yes, we will do it again. We will kill billions. We will commit genocide. We will become monsters. And afterward, we will build memorials to our victims. We will carry the guilt. We will mourn what we did. But we will do it. Because humanity's freedom is not negotiable. Our sovereignty is not optional. Our right to exist is absolute. That's the lesson of Earth. That's what we taught the galaxy. Threaten us with extinction, and we guarantee mutual destruction. The Assembly absorbed this. Some species looked afraid. Others looked understanding. All looked respectful. That's insane, someone said. Yes, Chunrei agreed. Complete insanity. Wanting freedom badly enough to embrace mutual destruction is crazy. But it's human. And it's why we're still here. The Commonwealth continued growing. More species joined. Conflicts arose and were resolved through negotiation. The galaxy slowly learned to cooperate instead of conquer Earth. Became the example everyone studied. The species that proved resistance was possible. That showed tyranny had a price too high to pay. That demonstrated freedom was worth dying for, but they were also the cautionary tale. Look what freedom cost. See the price they paid. Understand the monsters they became. Human children learned both lessons. They studied the war in detail, saw the casualty numbers, understood what their grandparents had done, and they grappled with the moral complexity. Were we heroes or villains? Became a common essay question in Earth schools. The answer most teachers wanted. Both, because humanity was both. They had saved themselves and freed the galaxy. And they had committed the worst atrocity in recorded history. 25 years after the war, Marcus Torres gave his final public speech. Earth's Memorial Day, remembering the 4 billion dead. I'm going to tell you something true, he said, speaking to billions across Earth and the Commonwealth. Something uncomfortable. Something that might make you hate me. I don't regret the war, the audience stirred. Murmurs of shock. I regret the deaths. I regret the suffering. I regret the horror we inflicted. But I don't regret the decision. I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret survival, because the alternative was worse. The alternative was submission. The alternative was slavery. And humanity doesn't do slavery. We've done it to each other throughout our history. We know exactly what it means. We know the degradation, the suffering, the loss of dignity that comes with forced submission. So when the Concordat offered us slavery or death, we chose neither. We chose to fight. We chose to make them regret the choice they offered. 340 billion people died because of that choice. I carry their names. I see their faces. I live with what we did, but I would do it again. Not because I want to. Not because I enjoy violence. Not because I'm cruel, but because freedom is worth any price. Because dignity is worth any sacrifice. Because humanity deserves to exist on our own terms. That's the lesson of Earth. That's what we taught the galaxy. That's what we'll teach anyone who forgets. We are not warriors because we love war. We are warriors because we love freedom more than we fear death. We are not monsters because we're evil. We are monsters because we refuse to be victims. We are humanity. We are free. We paid the price. Remember us.